Hi, it's Tove, and welcome to the Sunday session, a slower, more reflective space here on the Dizzy Diaries. This is where we take a pause between the science and the stories to talk about the human side of living with chronic illness, the emotions, the mindset, and sometimes the messy in-between moments we don't always give ourselves time to process. Today, I wanted to share something I actually haven't thought about in years. It came back to me recently while thinking about mental health and what it really means to be your own advocate when you're navigating a chronic condition or going through any sort of diagnosis or medical appointments. When I had my second IVIG treatment, it was a 5-day infusion in hospital, and I remember feeling so disappointed because it was a couple of months after my initial diagnosis, initial treatment, and starting to feel so much better. I had started to have symptoms flare up again and basically a rise in all the issues that initially led to my diagnosis of dysautonomia and POTS. So we decided to go ahead with a second treatment, and after the first one being very abrupt, being in hospital, having to have these infusions for 5 days, having family come and go, I really was in a place where I was like, why is this happening again? And trying to understand what was going on. It kind of felt like a failure of myself, even though I'd done all the things that I thought were right to help treat, manage the symptoms, but with all of these conditions, we know it takes years to figure out what works for your body, how to keep things out of a flare, and when you go through a flare, how to actually manage them. On the morning of the second day in hospital, my neurologist had come to see me, going through my charts and looking at everything from overnight, and she asked me something really random, but makes sense looking back. She asked how I was coping mentally. I told her I was obviously a bit down, but I'm quite an optimistic person, and I try to believe things will get better. She mentioned the hospital had psychological support available when you're in hospital and offered to have one of the psychologists come to speak with me. Initially, I said, no, it's fine. I don't need to worry about that. And upon second thought said to, maybe that would actually be a good idea. I'd never actually spoken to anyone about my mental health before, but I thought, why not? Maybe taking a more holistic approach could help my healing. The psychologist came that afternoon, and we had a really meaningful 45-minute conversation about everything: my health, my fears, my life at the time, and anything that I was worried about. At the end, she said, I'll see you again tomorrow and we'll keep meeting before you leave after the 5 days. I remember feeling relieved afterwards. I'd finally opened up or floated and felt like I was doing something for my mind, not just my body. When we speak about mental health or how we're feeling, it's a very vulnerable position, and speaking to someone professional can really help with this, or someone who has experience in these types of conditions and any physical ailments. But then she never came back. The next day I waited. Then the day after, I asked the nurses if I might be seeing her again, and they said, oh yes, she'll definitely come back and she'll be around. But she never did come back, and there was never an explanation. At the time, it really stuck with me. I'd trusted that process, trusted that someone was going to show up and hold space for what I'd shared, and then it just ended. Looking back, I don't think there was any bad intent. Things happen, schedules change, especially in the medical system. I can imagine she had so many patients that she was working with, and emergencies arise. But it did teach me this. You can put your trust in others, but you still have to be your own advocate. When you're unwell, you rely on the system, doctors, nurses, specialists, because you can't do everything for yourself. You can't give yourself a drip or prescribe your own medication, but you can speak up. You can ask questions. You can follow up. That's part of being a patient, not just receiving care, but helping to shape it. And this is where the topic of mental health resilience comes in. That experience also reminded me that mental health care needs persistence too. It's not a one-off conversation. It's something we have to nurture, just like physical recovery. Resilience isn't about pretending everything's fine or staying in control of things. It's about staying open, curious, and self-compassionate even when things don't go to plan. Sometimes resilience looks like chasing up the appointment, asking for clarity, or saying, actually, I'm still struggling, can we revisit this? And sometimes it's quieter. It's just not giving up on the belief that things can get better, even when you're disappointed or exhausted. If you're in a similar place, whether newly diagnosed or years into your journey, here are a few gentle reminders. Follow up. If something is promised, a referral, a test, a call, and it doesn't happen, you have every right to check in. You're not being difficult, you're taking care of yourself. The second one is write things down. Bring notes or questions to appointments. I'm a big advocate for this with myself and with our clients and patients, to write a list beforehand, write down any ideas, look for trends. We often send a report when they're going to doctors to say, well, what trends have we noticed? What questions do you have? So we can actually approach them in the session. It's so easy to forget what you wanted to ask when you're in the appointment in front of a doctor. So having these notes is really helpful, and actually doctors do appreciate it most of the time. It helps you stay grounded when your brain fog or emotions get in the way. Thirdly, ask for mental health support early. I didn't know this, and I didn't realize it until someone actually offered it to me, and then it felt like it was taken away, again, not intentionally. But don't wait until things feel unbearable. Mental health care is a part of medical care. Number 4 is to bring your own care team. That might include professionals, friends, online communities, people who help you feel seen and supported. So keep building this team. And finally, allow yourself to feel everything. I know it's easier said than done, but frustration, grief, hope, relief, healing isn't linear, and acknowledging that is a form of strength. So that's what I wanted to share today on this Sunday session. A little story that reminded me how important it is to care for the whole picture, body, mind, and everything in between. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share a comment, pop me a message. Maybe this is something we can keep exploring in future Sunday sessions, but let's look at the human side of things and keep moving forward. Until next time, take care of yourself, be kind to your nervous system, and remember, you're doing better than you think. Stay sparkly.